I've yet to talk to an entrepreneur who's not driven by some wild stuff that they need to like sit with. And making peace and harmony with those things, when you change that, you realize you can do a lot more doing a lot less. I'm a big believer in the do less better idea as opposed to just running 1,000 directions.
Our guest today is here to help you align your values, mindset, and your habits so that you can truly pursue the life that you want. And most importantly, that means spending quality time with the people that you love along your journey. Welcome to the show, the owner and host of Naked Sunday, Caleb Nelson.
Mike, thanks for having me on, man. Super excited for this.
Yeah, me too, man. This is going to be a unique episode, something we haven't really, some of the topics we're going to talk about today, we haven't really covered on Mic'd Up, and I have over 130 episodes. So super excited about that. I love your podcast. You do a great job with it. People can tune into that at nakedsunday.coach to see your coaching side, and check out your podcast everywhere that podcasts are available. And it's simply just type in Naked Sunday and you'll see Caleb's podcast pop up. So thank you again for being here, brother.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah. You can if anybody's wondering what it looks like, it's bright pink and bright blue. I like my neon colors.
Yeah, you don't miss it. It's totally got like this 80s vibe, kind of 90s actually, like early 90s vibe going on. Yep. Super cool.
Yep.
So I'm going to do a little setup and then we're going to dive into some questions and take our audience really along your journey. So I appreciate you being here. So figuratively, we're going to actually get naked on the show today. And I say figuratively, like in bold. Yes. And it's mostly, speaking for myself. I don't think our audience wants to see me get down to my my skivvies, as I call them, or less. So we're essentially going to be getting to the core, right, of who we are. That's an uncomfortable place. A lot of people don't get, like when they're by themselves and they have to think and take a moment to be present, it can become uncomfortable. So we're going to do that today. We're going to get a little uncomfortable. And I actually feel that the pandemic in some ways has forced us to be present again, like that one-on-one time with ourselves that we had in quarantine. So I want to think about that. So again, I want to just thank everybody for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube right now or Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, however you're tuning in, thank you for being with us. I'm talking to you right now directly. And I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time that you were truly present with yourself? Like, can you remember that when you actually gave yourself some self-love? And so I just want to give you that reminder today. Be real with yourself, find peace and harmony in that moment, and take the time to give yourself some of that much needed love. With that said, we're going to kick off the show. Caleb, you ready to roll?
Let's do this, bro.
Awesome. So hit us with the origin story of Naked Sunday. That's what everybody's wondering right now. They haven't tuned in. I think they're a little bit like their eyebrows are up. Like, what the hell are they talking about? So first of all, what influenced you to create that as a brand and then eventually the podcast? And then also, most importantly, why did you spend an entire Sunday naked?
So I guess the influence behind it, one, I'm not oblivious to the fact that it does make people turn their heads. So like, let's be real. A business got to make you stop your scroll or whatever it is with something. And I'm not, I'm not averse to that type of attention. I'm used to saying some brash things at some unique times, but in essence and functionally, that was a habit I did. And every Sunday I sat butt naked with myself, and then later on brought my wife into it. And it ultimately became a process that allowed me to learn how to like myself, love myself, and develop a sense of inner peace. That was the inside of it all. The outside changed the way I live my life. It deepened my relationships with my wife, my friends, my family. It changed the way I do business. It brought me more meaning and substance and changed and increased my value. And functionally, at the end of the day, I also lost 40 pounds. So I literally looked better naked, both inside and out.
Because you obviously were seeing yourself more, literally naked and mindful of, I want to lose a couple pounds. But previous to doing that, having that exercise, was that a one-time thing you did, or you did it every Sunday for a while?
Did it every Sunday for a while. And when I started coming to terms with all this stuff, I never thought I was going to ever have to thank Christina Aguilera for anything. So my wife, I know this is great. My wife was listening to something God only knows where, maybe on social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And she was like, I heard Christina Aguilera did this thing called Naked Sunday with her husband. Now, I don't know if it's like a bad omen or not, because I don't know if she's still married, whatnot. But she presented this to me. And of course, the first thought in my head is, so I'm going to spend a whole day naked with my wife. Yeah, that's going to work out really well for me. And so there was some surface level drivers in there.
Yeah, she wasn't pulling your leg, really forcing you into it. Hey, I'm going to have my no clothes on for the entire day. All right.
You think it's going to end up that way. And, I won't go too far down that.
But there was more to it. You realize, okay, this is actually something that there's a lot going on here. Physical appearance and confidence. You said it's helped you with your relationships, with your family, your friends, and also business. And I think that, to me, there's like I got to figure that out. How does that all tie together? Is that because you're just feeling so much better as a person? You're vibing at a higher level. So then you but you're coming to them from a higher place.
Well, it's twofold. I first needed to figure out what I wanted in terms of the relationships I had in my life, and what did they need from me. Yeah. Whether it was as a husband, or as a friend, or as a family member, or whatever it was, what were they really looking for out of me? And what was my value? What was my worth? I owned a gym for about 10 years beforehand, and I was at a point where I was exhausted. And this started towards the tail end of that. And I knew I was checked out with what I was doing, because at that point, I was starting to branch out from just I really just described as I was just shining the surface with people. On the surface, helping let people lose weight, get stronger, whatever, the functional, pragmatic, look better naked. But I wasn't delivering on the depth. And I was feeling that. I wasn't feeling driven. I wasn't feeling valued. My price point wasn't reflecting that. I just was not showing up in the way that was most authentically best for me as a leader, as a provider, as a caregiver, as a whatever it was. And knowing that I had continued to hit that wall, I needed to really go inward and ask myself, like, where is my value? What am I showing up as? How do I see my own value and self-worth in all this? The external manifestation of that stress and that strife and the cloudiness and the fog that came from it was, well, I put on weight. I was not living in alignment with my values, especially if I'm guiding people on a health journey, let alone something deeper than that. I needed to square up with that. And to the fact that you're talking about before, while I was driven by some, flippant surface level drivers in the beginning, my wife didn't join in the beginning. I was like, well, I'm doing this now. And I did not realize how nasty I was to myself. My internal self-talk was brutal, and that needed to change. And I think, especially with the people I've yet to talk to an entrepreneur who's not driven by some wild stuff that they need to sit with, and making peace and harmony with those things. When you change that, you realize you can do a lot more doing a lot less. I'm a big believer in the do less better idea, as opposed to running 1,000 directions.
I can think of a lot of examples of that. Just thinking about that with film lately, about how a lot of new films come out and they just try to hit you with so many different things, and they're missing some of these really good core elements that is why you would love a film in the first place. Like, number one, a good story. And so your wife came to you, and what's your wife's name?
Lexi.
So she came to you with this idea, the Christina Aguilera thing she heard, and then you did it first. She didn't join in right away. It was her idea, though, but she didn't come in right away.
It tends to be the way in my relationship. I tend to be a bit of the trailblazer. Like, I'm just going to walk off into the ether, whether it's in business, just shake hands, kiss babies, all that stuff. And then I kind of invite her to keep coming, and I gently nudge and encourage her, because this is just.
So is she home on the Sundays that you were doing that? While she just be doing the laundry, and she looks over and there's Caleb walking along.
1,000%. Okay. We've been through a lot, and she knows I'm slightly off my rocker. So this is like par for the course at this point.
Yeah. But let's get back to the fact that it's all happening for good reason. It's not like you're off your rock. You're like, she just doesn't know why you're doing it, and you're just looking for attention. You were trying to get whole with yourself.
I didn't realize it, but when I started to sit with it, and then I started to open up with her about it. So I'll share this revelation I had that first day where I'm sitting there by myself. I look down, and I should also give people scope here. There was a moment probably 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago when I was at my first job. And I just kind of become like a co-business owner and my first gym, whatever it was. and I was sitting in a hot tub butt naked, and I sold a membership to a dude, just not giving a damn. Like that was where I was, feeling good in my body. Here I was later on, and I couldn't sit by myself alone in my apartment. That was weird. So here I am, and then this revelation around this, like, I really don't like myself. I would go so far as to say I hate myself. Now, for the years leading up to that, like my father had almost passed away a few years beforehand. I would say that really sparked what I would call a spiritual journey that I've been on, of really going inward and confronting a lot of my own stuff. This was the most, I'm going to call it, extreme form of that. And I remember this moment where I just hit the pause button. I'm like, I looked over at my wife and I just asked this question to myself. I was like, well, she loves me. Why? She loves me for more than just this, because she's been with me when I had a better physique and whatnot. Why does she love me? And I sat with that. And that was my healthier version of taking the edge off, where, a lot of people use, like, I'm gonna have a drink or something like that to take the proverbial edge off. And that stress, that anxiety, that self-loathing, whatever it is, the overwhelm that brought that down. And then what that allowed me to do from that empathy and that kindness, and realizing I had more worth than just the flesh and blood that I have about me in the physical realm, I then said, okay, well, to make sure I respect the other value I bring to the table, well, what did I do? What are the habits that I did this past week, and where did they come from? And it would be something like, on Tuesday, I was strung out of my mind. I was really tired. I was cranky. I did whatever. And then I crushed a sleeve of Oreos. Well, what could you do better next time? And it was that became the process. I would do the same thing about.
So you're taking like a mental inventory of what caused actions to happen. And instead of just saying, don't do the action, like telling someone don't eat a sleeve of Oreos, and that happens, maybe that happens once a week or something. They end up doing that once a month or whatever. And they're like, yeah, it's easy to just say, don't do the action, but you have to get to the root of what's causing the person to do that. In this case, you were tapped out just mentally, physically, you were just shot, but you were hungry. You weren't going to make yourself a sandwich. So you're just like, I'm just going to crush some Oreos right now. So you have to go back and fix really the root problem, right?
Yeah, well, I had to address what were all the things that were leading up to it.
People can't do that right away until they make the inventory. That's why I wanted to stop on that. It's like, I know in my life, a lot of times if I've ever was reaching out for help and people are trying to help on the surface, it's like, we got to really dig first and find the roots so you can help me out. Because if I don't get vulnerable and real and tell you about what's really going on, you're going to think just correct a little bit over here, course correct, and we're fine. But that's not fine, because then you'll go back to your home, I'll go into my home, and we'll slap hands and say things are good. And then guess what? Those roots keep growing, whether you water them or not. And that's what happens. So it's good that you actually were able to have that sense of, I got to get into the core of what's going on. It's kind of interesting that you went, this whole Naked Sunday thing actually is what really allowed you to kind of sit with yourself, and some of these things came to you in that moment, in those moments of literally sitting with yourself. That's all you got, don't even have a t-shirt on your back, and it got real. So how do you help people? Because I want to make sure that we're being helpful to the audience. That's why they're tuning in here. It's an interesting story, of course, but my goal with the show is to help people level up to whatever they're looking to do in life, to get to that next step and keep growing. A lot of young entrepreneurs tuning into the show. It's not always business folks, but usually it's like the entrepreneurial minded spirit that's looking for greatness out of their lives. That's why I decided to start the show. So we're looking to serve that group of people. How can you help them get to that level of harmony if right now they feel like they're maybe out of lockstep with themselves, with their people they love, with their business partners, and they're just like trying to get that harmony?
Yeah. Well, the first thing would be give yourself permission to stop and hit the pause button. What I find, especially with that entrepreneurial spirit and that visionary charisma, you can get a lot of opportunities, and you end up saying a yes to a lot of things, not really checking in with yourself of, is that really what I want? And as simple as that question sounds of what do I want from myself, most people haven't really been honest about it, because it's often very much influenced by the social media swipe, what other people think is right and wrong, good and bad, the dogmas of the world, and the voices that have been surrounding you. My hope is, first, in that pause, you can first gave yourself confidence that taking a pause and giving yourself that permission, you can start to gain confidence in just that. You are in control of your life. That's one of the, I think, the sexier draws of entrepreneurism. I have freedom. I choose what I want to do. Except ironically, here we are giving away all our power to everybody else's opinions every single day. So hitting that pause button starts to check back in. It checks back in when that inner voice, that's always there. But if you've just been clouding that with external means, whether it's food, drink, people, whatever, you're not checking in on that truth. Go figure, you feel overwhelmed, carrying a lot of burdens that you don't even care about ultimately anyway. You don't even know if those are really the relationships you wish to maintain. So in that pause, first, just chill. And it's going to probably be uncomfortable because the amount of people I know that can't even, like, the idea of sitting still for 1 minute sounds like nails on a chalkboard. That should probably tell you something. We'll start there.
Yeah.
But what I love to do, a simple assessment people can do is, I call it a happiness audit or a happiness rating. If you think of yourself as systems, a connection of systems, I think of 3 main systems. I think of self-care, I think of meaningful work, and I think of relationships. And you can go ahead and give yourself a rating. Anybody who's listening along right now or watching along, give yourself a score of 0 to 1, which would be 0 to 100% for each one of those. Now, if anybody knows anything about system reliability, it's not that A plus B plus C equals X, whatever. It's A times B times C equals blank. And if you do that percentage, I think people are going to be pretty surprised how low that number is for your system reliability. Take it back to, say you have a process at work, you have a sales process, you have an onboarding process, and you have a fulfillment process. If the reliability of any one of those things is off, it's going to affect the consistency of that system. It's going to affect the yield on the back end, and which will lead back into the front end because you're going to have a bad reputation if it's low. You are your own system, and those 3 things affect you. Your mental, emotional, physical, dare I say, spiritual health would be the self-care piece. Give yourself a rating. Give yourself a meaningful work rating. And this would be somewhere along the line of, what do you love to do? Like, really love to do? Lights your world on fire. You can't stop thinking about it. When you're done doing it, you're like, I can't wait to get more of it. What are you great at? Not good at. And there's a lot of things you are great at, but it's got to align with what you love too. And then also, what are you being valued appropriately for? And that can come in many different forms. But as an entrepreneur, typically it's, what are you charging the most for? That's the easiest way we can flip
or
that.
What's bringing in the money, right?
Bring in money, make it simple.
Yeah.
How is typical? I'm a big believer in high ticket services because your consulting and your relationship to a client, high ticket, is high attention, high focus, high relationship connection. That'd be the meaningful work piece. And then the relationships would be taking a look at, how are you checking in with, how are you with your family at home? What's it like with your spouse, your significant other? How about your kids? How about your friends? How about your family? How are all of those things intertwined? Rate those, give yourself a number. And then when you see that number, you can just literally look at the lowest one and say, how about I bring that up? What most people want to do, and it's usually, especially if you're an entrepreneur, is, I need to do more work. Nope, probably not the place. Because we attach a lot of our self-worth and our value to the things we do, but not respecting the fact that those other things deeply affect that yield. So what I noticed a lot of times, there was this one prime example with at the gym, sales were down. I was really frustrated. And I was like, I'm going to get on the horse. I'm going to do all the things. I know all the practical steps. I'm going to do all the reach outs and I did all the things. Not only did sales not get better, they got worse. What was going on here? I was more frustrated. I was angry. Well, I took a moment. I looked at myself the same way I was telling my clients at the time. I was like, zoom out, just take a bigger picture, look at your life. Oh, what was going on? Well, I had some friction at home with my wife. I was feeling stressed. I was feeling inadequate. I didn't feel like I was delivering what she needed. Okay.
Yeah, you're showing up in this way you didn't realize you were showing up in. So when you're making those calls, you were vibing at a level of likely desperation or something, or something. You weren't passing. I just had this conversation with another previous guest, Robert Gillette, and he says, pass the sniff test. Right. And you weren't passing in that moment because your alignment was all off. So they were kind of feeling some way that wasn't making them say like, yeah, I want to do business with this guy. And you may have been, hey, everything I offer is a great service. True. You're going to deliver on it. The gym likely was a great place for them to be, but because you were out of alignment in the moment, that wasn't the right time to hit it home. You needed to spend some time with yourself, right? So then you can be a better version when you're showing up, making those phone calls, working with your team. Like, worst thing you can do is have a team meeting when your energy is shot. They're going to feel you and see that you're way out of alignment. And then everybody else is like, who's leading this ship right now? That's our leader. He's shot, So you got to collect yourself. And that's where that deep work really comes in, right?
Yeah. And I'll even go one step further. I'm a big believer in this concept of the window and the mirror. It's something I write a lot about, and I've even officiated a wedding, and that was my speech. And my wife, if I work backwards from this, I do like a guided meditation that I call "Who's Holding Your Hand on Your Deathbed?" Because I look at my wife as a reflection of the best version of myself, or at least what I'm aspiring to, because she will show me that. So by going home and patching up whatever friction there was there, she reminded me of my worth, which in an existential sense reminded me of like, I'm already whole. I've already won. I'm already good on me. And that snowballed into that energy you're talking about. So the next day I showed up, I was more present with my clients. I was kinder with the staff. I was happier from step to step to step to step. By the time I showed up to a sales room, I'm like, I'm just good on it. And I felt secure enough to really ask the questions that they needed to share with me, to give me the tools to actually invite them in and support them in the way that they deserved. So it's this bigger picture look. If you can look at yourself as a leader, as a system, and they're depending on you to be whole, all your clients, your staff, everybody, they're all relying on you to be grounded because you're the vision of where they're going in some way, shape, or form. They are trying to emulate some aspect of your success. And if you're not allowing that best part of you to shine through because of these other distortions or these other distractions that are influencing your energy and your mind, don't be surprised when your sales go down. Don't be surprised when your retention goes down. Mm-hmm. And it's giving yourself permission to take a step back, tighten things up, work from the back to the front. Because most people just want to be like, more sales, more sales, more sales. Well, what are you funneling sales into? If you're funneling it into a soulless delivery because your energy's not there,
right?
Don't be surprised when they don't get the result you promised them. You don't meet their expectations, and you're not going to get these raving fans that everybody wants out of their business. You started it for a reason, for people to be inspired, to win in some sense or another.
Right. You got to get back to your purpose. Right. And I think about that for all three layers of what you're talking about too, like the relationship thing. I was married for 6 years. I'm currently divorced, but I know like relationally, if I'm looking, to whether it's with your wife, spouse, girl, longtime, partner, whenever you want to like move things forward with them, whether it's, romantically or whatever, like if things are not right, like you just had the worst day and they're off and they just had a bad day at work and you're just like, let's push that aside and pretend that didn't happen. And, let's go out for dinner and like have a romantic evening. Like, no, you gotta like, some people might be wired like that way where they're just like escaping, but not talking about escaping, talking about actually handling things. So like listening to your wife, Lexi, hey, I know that you came home from work and you were just like, it seemed like you're frantic and I just want to back up before we even go out to dinner tonight and work through that. And then now she's going to come to you from a place of love. And then same thing with you. Like you made those sales calls. You probably came home that day livid, like nothing seemed to work. Right. And then she worked with you a little bit and reminded you of your core values. And she reminded you of the greatness that's within you and the best version of yourself. And the next day you came back and you were just you're on the ball because you felt it. And so I just wanted to say that for myself. I know that it's not just a business thing that we're talking about. That's just a life. It's with your partners, it's with your friends, it's with your team, and the best thing you could do, number one thing you need to do, and I'm not trying to coach you, you're the coach, is realize it. Because a lot of times people struggle to correct, but it's because they have a hard time realizing it. So really, that's the first thing that has to happen, right? You got to realize what's going on. So this conversation, man, I didn't know where we're going to go with it today. This is really good. I know we have like 20 more minutes, which is crazy because it's flying. So we're going to take a quick time out. We're going to give our sponsors some love. We'll be right back with Caleb. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with Caleb Delson. You guys can connect with him on social media. All those links are clickable in the show notes, making it super easy to connect. Remember, if you wanted to learn more about Naked Sunday, you can go to nakedsunday.coach and search for his podcast as well on Apple, Spotify. Are you also on YouTube? Do you have a video version out for your show?
We do have a YouTube channel, and my team helped me put that together. I am not the not the tech master.
You're not the tech guy, yeah.
Not even a little
but that's
bit.
Cool. So, because some people like to watch, they're watching us on YouTube right now, opposed to listening in. So that's good to know. We just passed Father's Day. There's just this past Sunday, and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about some fatherly wisdom. I know when you and I connected the first time, you shared a little bit about your relationship off camera with your father, and one of the things that sometimes guys don't really go there is saying I love you, right? Especially I would say with their sons too. And my dad did not say that to me, and I know your dad didn't say I love you to you as well. So I think it's just not commonly shared amongst men to be able to say I love you or show that kind of side. That a lot of times there's a front put up. So what I wanted to do is have this conversation with you real quick about words of affirmation, how important words of affirmation are. I know there's different love languages, and for some people, words of affirmation is not necessarily their love language. It's maybe more touch or just more of a feeling. Yeah. But I want to talk about, from the fatherly side of things, how important words of affirmation are. To me, every day I tell my daughter I love her. I don't get off the phone without telling her that. So talk about that. Words of affirmation, how important are they?
They're massively important. And ironically enough, the past 2 years, I had some massive revelations about my own love languages. I had them completely backwards. And I had a conversation at a retreat that really opened the door to another level of it. And the way, shout out to Jamie Nolan, if anybody knows who she is. She's a phenomenal coach. She has a company called Los Comadres. So just shout out across the board to great people.
Cheers to Jamie, and cheers to Mills Bender for connecting us, right? Cheers.
Yes. And it was at Mills's retreat that we were having this conversation over dinner.
Okay, cool.
And the way she said it is, and forgive me if I mess this up, but the way she said is that often the one that we need the most is the one we deny ourselves the most. And that hit me on the head like a ton of bricks, because last year I realized I went on a journey of accepting that words of affirmation was very important to me. This year, and probably maybe 2 months ago, I realized that gifts were actually my primary love language. How I realized this was, first, I use words of affirmation a lot on others, and I also gift a lot. That's one of my main strategies in like my business, is that I love to show love through giving a gift that's, for me, also wrapped into an act of service. So it's a very deep, like, I want to show you that I know you so much and I know what problem you're going through right now, and I'm going to solve that. When it comes to, so where that conversation with her like illuminated some things for me, like, my wife takes care of a lot of like little things. She's very like consistent with small things of even just like like cleaning the house, or just but making me food, or just little things like that. I had no idea that those were actually big forms of just making sure I'm good, that I can come home and rest and just be myself. It never occurred to me that that was what was happening. And her saying that, it was like, oh, and not only that, in me sometimes being a little flippant about those things, like, you're just so neurotic about cleaning the house, or like, you just like, you're trying to, do all this, that, and the other. And you're like, I don't need all that. I didn't realize I was actually denying her that feeling of love, because she was trying to show me that kindness. Bringing it back to what you're talking about, saying I love you. Ironically enough, I just wrote a blog post about this, of one of the lessons I learned from my father, and it's love is a habit. And a couple of years ago, I had acknowledged, and I think I shared this with you, is that I realized, oh, this is not something we do. Like, I know he loves me. And I remember the one time earlier in my life, and I was having like a meltdown when I was like 5th grade or something. I can't remember exactly when. And I remember him like crying and holding me and saying, I love you. And that impacted me. And I was like, I'm at this place in my life, I would regret not saying this over and over again, because who knows how long we've got to live. So I decided just one day to start getting on the phone. And every time we stopped or ended the call, I would just say, love you, and got off. To give any guy who's thinking about doing this, I'm letting you know, I felt a overwhelming amount of feelings of anxiety about doing this, which sounds ridiculous.
You're talking about saying I love you to your dad at the end of a phone call?
Saying I love you. Because to me, if I say this is important to me, I need to just show it. Let me show with
actions speak louder. Yeah. So did he return the I love you at the end of the call, or no?
Not the first one. I think he was a little, like, he just looked a little startled and was like, okay. And like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't angry. It wasn't weird. It just was like, you could tell he was a little startled. And I just kept doing it. And I have readily admitted that I have been a terrible person. And when it comes to like keeping in touch with people, it's just not, I can go a long time with just being by myself. But I started calling home more, especially during the pandemic. I was going through some interesting changes of just whatever, and kept doing it for about a year. And he started to say it back. And that was really cool. But we went on a 2-week trip together. We had really built our relationship. We dove pretty deep into just stuff over that year, because I think that routine started to open him up a little bit more to sharing more things with me, which, shockingly enough, the repetition and the habits do that.
It was hitting home. It was landing, basically.
It was landing. And we had this conversation. We went on a 2-week trip out west to national parks, and we're halfway through the thing, and we're in the Grand Canyon at this little Mexican restaurant. We put down a pitcher of margaritas each, and we're just talking about feelings, whatever.
Sure. And now you got Dad talking.
We were just good on it. We were just talking. Anyway, we were just like, at this point, we had built a relationship. Oh, it's all good. Yeah. We acknowledge, like, hey, we understand, like, this is a vehicle to help loosen things up, and it is what it is, but we could do it without.
Sure.
But we came across that thing, and he's like, you know what? I noticed when you started doing that, and I'm really glad you did. And that really spoke to me about making it, like, learning how to understand others. And if this is something that's important to me, I need to practice this behavior. And I started to have a lot of empathy. Like, well, what if he was never taught that this was important? What if he has no idea? How could I? If I don't open my mouth and share and be vulnerable enough to say, this is what I care about, not even giving him the tools to reciprocate that in kind. Now, if he didn't, it is what it is. It wasn't about that. It was about, first and foremost, me sharing my appreciation and my love for him in the way that I know. And I would elaborate, tell him more, and say, hey, I really appreciate when you share. And we've built I find myself very fortunate to realize the kind of relationship I do have with him, let alone that we could talk about some of the things. But then the amount of people who told me, hey, you want a 2-week trip alone with your father, and you're in your 30s and you could just do that. And I was like, yeah, that takes, I did not realize how much like that kind of is a big thing for people.
Yeah. or just grateful for the moment. I mean, my father passed away in 2020 with COVID. So, and a lot of people lost their parents. Some both, but, and so just to have that time with them is super special. And even if you didn't, not everybody's super close with their mom or their dad. So yeah, that's a really cool thing that you were able to do that. And, you'll both always have that forever. That'll always be a forever trip right there, super, super good. Now, is your dad someone that helped influence you into becoming a coach? Or, I mean, you're obviously an entrepreneur and have this entrepreneurial spirit. You had the gym, now you do one-on-one coaching with clients. Where did that influence come from?
So my father's an artist, and right behind me, you can see some of his artwork. We actually built that together. That's called Marketry. And so my taste for high-end things has been from early on. So definitely something around that. I've certainly been influenced by his creativity, and he more or less runs that business, and it's his artwork. And I think there's something really profound in saying, here's a piece of me in this medium, and I'm sharing it with the world. And it's not like it's high-end artwork. So understanding that kind of like, well, what's the depth behind it? What's the substance, the meaning, made furniture, things like that. So seeing that from a coaching standpoint, I would sometimes go to some of his art shows with him, and I would sit back and I would just watch him build these relationships with people. He would just, something like there's the art of the schmooze. He would just know how to talk to people and have this dance about his creativity but a professionalism with it it was highly influential to me. I also give them my parents credit for like, do whatever you want with your life. Like, and as far as like professionally, we're not telling you what job you need to have, do that. There was other restrictions in my life that whatever, but like that was also probably influenced me, but
they had to parent, they had to guide, it sounds like they did a good job there.
Yeah. Sure. And I give them a lot of credit in the world. I mean, probably one of the ironic things that led me into entrepreneurism that leaves me okay with the unknown is I had a pretty massive fallout with my parents when I was 17. I grew up in sometimes I call it a cult. Some people would call it a church, whatever you want to call it. It's a very rigid religious doctrine. And at that moment in my life, I was basically like, screw it, I'm going my own way. And that opportunity, while it was not like celebrated, was also me saying, well, I believe in doing things my own way. I don't care about this way. I think there's a different way, and being okay and following that. So both of those things coupled together, my father and I, he does have an interesting way of communicating. I would say that I often take after a lot of the way he speaks. So some of that, and then also this, I believe in something, I'm going that direction. It is what it is. I think you need to be a little brash when it comes to being an entrepreneur, because you have to, there's plenty of other businesses that are better funded, have a better team. Better is a relative term, but you have to say like, I believe in this core concept, this why, or whatever, however you want to use that word. It's worth it. I will take this burden of freedom over the weight of predictability and comfort. And that's a very challenging thing to do. And that's why I resonate mostly with entrepreneurs, because of that. I value my ability to have a say and some autonomy in my life.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable with us to get into some of the core there with your relationship with your parents and with your dad. I had a recent guest on. Sounds like they grew up in a similar situation where, their religion was all part of their culture, but everybody, like, he went to school, he went to kindergarten on the same campus he graduated from high school. Like, so basically kindergarten, first grade, all the way up to 12th grade, same friends, same teachers, same campus, same classes, like same religion, influence. And so basically I felt like he was raised in like the Truman Show, where everything was just like this planned environment. And I'm someone who, I'm a Christian. I go to church. I serve. I'm on the worship team, the worship hat here. I love serving with my brothers and sisters, and we have a really close knit group that's on the we call it the dream team. But it's still like we're not like stuck on this campus. So I can kind of feel for you there, knowing that you wanted out, but it wasn't because, to me, and I want to speak for you,
Sure.
that you were hating on anybody. You just said, I want to try to kind of fly with my own wings. God gave me wings, and not he didn't snip them, so I want to go try to fly. And it sounds like you did that. So what was the relationship like after you finally said, I'm kind of going to the beat of my own drum? It sounds like it was met with adversity, but now you have a good relationship with your parents. So how did that all work together?
Certainly was met with adversity. There was consequences. Ironically enough, in my entire life, I have very much felt alone. I feel very much like an outsider in every space that I'm in. That's my own thing. But that only amplified it. Like even with my own family, I just sometimes don't know how to engage. And ironically, a lot of times I find a lot of joy in just walking in other people's shoes so I can just understand them. And there was a lot of friction. Namely, like there was more pressure between my mother and I. But after, like I said, that pivotal moment with my father almost passing from cancer with a stroke complications from the treatment or whatever it was, we actually don't really know. I really took a long, hard look in the mirror of like, what am I fighting over? What am I angry at? What am I blaming people at? And the victim mentality that I adopted from that moment of like, oh, you're telling me I can't do this, da 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 da. And while I still didn't agree with that dominion over me, I also looked back like that also gave me this opportunity. And also they were just looking to care for me. And also where did it come from? I learned, I wanted to have
really a mature way of looking at the big picture.
Well, I was just seeing how I was becoming, in many ways, I was becoming the quote unquote cult leader that I rejected, that I despised, because I was operating from a place of scarcity and anger and resentment that happened in a business relationship as well later on. And I was like, I am becoming that. And I just didn't want to associate myself with it, but not realizing I was just not looking at myself. And that moment, I've thanked my father for it. It's like, you went through a lot of pain to allow me to see this light. And that started my better connection, I think, with myself, with God or spirituality, however anybody else wants to define that for themselves, do you? But I found a lot more peace in that. I had to rebuild some relationships with my family, with my siblings, with my father, with my mother, namely, like I ended up coaching my mom and she lost 40 pounds.
Wow.
We were just having a conversation about that yesterday.
That's awesome.
That also was an exercise of me learning how to have empathy for her and have real compassion. How did she get here to these decisions in her life that I know now physical stuff is a representation of other things? Okay. That conversation in learning how to love all the things that are different than me in others allowed me to see and love myself more. And Naked Sunday was a really powerful exercise in all of that.
Do you still do that every Sunday?
I don't do it every Sunday. I've had that been asked that a few times recently. And the idea of Naked Sunday is to be doing it all the time, but to be naked with yourself, be honest with yourself. So in a sense, in a existential sense, I'm doing it all the time. Like showing up here and just being willing to be honest and open as possible to the best of my awareness with you is Naked Sunday.
Is being naked. Yeah. That's kind of what I understood where the conversation would go today. And I'm glad that it did. We had to strip things bare so we could build them back up. That's so true. And so I'd like to get into your brain for a moment and
Please
see
do.
how you're wired. What does keep you inspired to be working at such a high level and seeking greatness? Sometimes people get a little bit scared to say that. It sounds like it's being maybe not shallow, but that you're chasing the wrong thing. But when the way I understand it is like living to your highest potential. And you're someone who I know done some research on you, and I know that is the level that you operate at. Like you're not looking for just very good or definitely not mediocre. So what keeps you striving for that excellence day in and day out?
I really appreciate that question. And the way I'm going to frame it, I was asked a question at that retreat. Well, she asked everybody in the room, like, if you had a magic wand, what would be the one thing you'd wish for? And they all went around. I had no idea I was going to be asked. But the way when it came to me, I responded with world inner peace. And that's what drives me. I understand in myself, like I'm a unique person that like once chaos hits, I calm down, I chill out. But as I reflect on that, I realize it's just me observing what's been happening on the inside. So of course I feel comfortable in that. What if I could start getting comfortable in peace and helping other people just have that like, I'm good on me. In my own life, I have found less friction. I've found less resentment. I've found less animosity. I feel more calm. I'm still going to experience difficulties and challenges and tough days and bad sales and stuff's going to come up, but I find my ability to come back to center and feel grounded and feel a deeper sense of enrichment in my relationships is much better. And I see the prosperity in my life amplify, maybe not always at the pace that my ego wants it to go, because I'm a dude and I want this and I want that because success. But I am finding more, again, peace and prosperity in my world. And the more I talk with others and the more I work with others, the more they can, instead of waiting for somebody else to paint a brush over everything and everybody else is happy and peaceful and it should be this way. That's like, it's the same problem as trying to do a crash diet or just plastic surgery and expecting you to solve all your problems, or win the lottery and solves all your problems. Like, no, it doesn't. You're just putting a cover, like a cover over that. And if you can build this richness and this fullness and this inner peace, we're going to see that portray in your rest of your life. So
yeah, you're not looking to put a Band-Aid on it. You're looking to actually get in there, do, we'll call it surgery, whatever, procedure, something that's going to long-term effect, course correct, right? We're not just looking for the, you came in with this little problem and we solved it. And then they go along and it ends up blowing up into something much bigger. So I think it's so important. The big takeaway for me today, I keep coming back to, is just being in harmony with yourself. And you call it Naked Sunday. And if someone wants to actually do that, I think that's cool. Go try it. But even if you're not necessarily physically naked, but just really get with yourself, take an inventory. How you feeling? And if there's a lot of things that don't feel right to you, seek out help, whether it's coaching from Caleb or someone that's I'm talking to the audience right now, in their network, that they can reach up. I'll tell you, 2021, unless it was 2021 or 2022, I think it was 21, is the first year I actually hired a coach, someone that works with me, personal coach, mental mindset. They keep me accountable for everything. They know more about me than anybody ever, including family. I've told them, this person, everything about me, every hiccup, every hang up, every mistake, everything. And they always come to me with grace and love and flip it around in a way that keeps moving me forward in growth. Like, no matter what, I could share something devastating. I could share a huge win. And there's always like the next step of how I can get to where I want to go. So it's never like, okay, well, because you have a mistake or something bad happened today, or the sale fell through or whatever. We're not going way back 6 months before I met this, you know what I mean? Like where I was before. We're still picking ourselves up in the moment and making big things. So I'm telling our audience right now, go seek that help, whether it's Caleb, someone, read books, listen to podcasts, improve your think tank. If there's ever something that's off kilter, try to really get in there, dive deep. It's going to be uncomfortable, but find the root cause of what's going on and start to correct that in the moment. So I know we're running a little bit low on time. A couple more questions for you. The second last one here is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you really were like excited? You're coming on mic'd up and you're like, I want to get this out to the world, and we didn't talk about it yet.
I mean, I just like to talk about what people are interested in. So, if that, I want to just take a moment to actually commend you on being vulnerable about your own journey with that stuff. Yeah. I think that authenticity and that type of leadership needs to be highlighted more. And I've really enjoyed how it sounds like you have a phenomenal relationship with your coach. Mm-hmm. And the thing that stuck out for me was how you lead with a positive frame. There's a lot of coaching out there that uses shame and guilt tactics. Like, you didn't do this and it's bad. And it's like, cool. Somebody that like,
it doesn't serve it. I always leave with the sense of like, I always feel 100% better at the end of every call. Yeah. With my coach. And I know they're not doing it just as like it's not a rah-rah. It's not a feel good, whatever. Everything's fine. It's a really like, okay, cool. Let's think about it this way. And here's how it can serve us. And here's how we can get better.
Yeah.
you know?
We're especially for an entrepreneur, you're probably always looking at all the holes in your game and you're probably brutal on yourself.
Uh-huh.
Do you need one more person just ripping you apart?
Right.
Probably not. Probably not. Now, it's not to say don't address the elephant in the room, which sounds like they're doing a phenomenal job. And hopefully anybody realizes, like, I don't care if somebody signs up with me or not. Like, people
Yeah.
hire coaches
Right.
fundamentally based off of you like them. That's what I came to
Mm-hmm.
terms with. Like, I'm not best or worst or whatever. I'm just like, I'm a dude that you want to have the conversation with. It sounds like a professional friend, somebody who's going to say, we're going to talk about the real. I'm going to help you normalize that. And you're going to be like, you leave good again. Like, because
Yeah.
you're already going to go do your best. Cool. That's a different frame. And I just wanted to say, like, I hope if anybody could take anything away from that,
Mm-hmm.
while the shame and guilt tactics can work, where everybody preaches like hardcore accountability and all that stuff, got it. That is a short-term tactic. And especially when you achieve a certain level of success, stare at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs all the time, by the way. The top, when you get to self-actualization, that some people get a little razzled, like the real one ends with transcendence, which gets into spirituality. Some people get a little riled up about that. But that top end of the pyramid is
Right.
less about a push. It's about what's pulling you towards your cause, your purpose, those things.
Yes.
The bottom is about don't die, don't die, don't die. Like food and water and all those other things, like the basic human needs.
Mm-hmm.
This other piece, this essence that we're talking about, to beat it down somebody's throat, that's not a long-term
Right.
the road, the rest of your life.
There's definitely a time when someone needs to kind of like smack you out of it. And I'm not talking about
Sure.
physical smack, but like wake you up, say, hey, dude, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same result. So we need to like get you shaken up a little bit so you wake up, because you're kind of in a stupor. Some people are, and I've been here before, again, being vulnerable. I've been in the just work hard. If I don't have a solution, or I don't maybe know how to change it, all I know how to do is work hard. So I'll work the 12-hour day, but really, was it the best 12 hours I could have done? No, because again, I have to go back and say, maybe we can do things differently, more effectively. And I've actually had days where I've put less in the day, like 4 things instead of 12, and I've been more productive. Like less items, more value.
Yeah.
That
I talk
seems to
about
be
it
the key.
all the time. And now I think it's important. I love how you described your day. That's your day. My day might look different. Somebody else's, like the grind your face off thing. I think trying other people's strategies on for size is a valuable exercise to say, I'm going to give this a shot. Give yourself an extended period of time. You can also define that period of time. Like, I'm going to test this, but it's a test. Reassess. You talked about that before. I think you used the word reassess, or evaluate yourself, audit yourself and say, did that really work for me? If you're strung out all the time, you're probably not as productive as you said you wanted to be. And that's where the quality, we need to define that and dose that in a way that's meaningful to us, because you have to continue to live your life. That other person is not walking in your shoes in all the other things with your family and your friends and all the other stuff that you care about. There's context and there's texture and there's flavor that's unique to you. So again, if people can start using that as, like, those are starting points. Here's a framework. Here's an idea. And then saying, I'm going to reassess, what do I need to tweak to be uniquely beneficial? And what am I basing the metric on changing? Like, how do I define success? Most people don't even think about that. It's, oh, I bought a Rolex. Okay, to do what? Is it, if it's a memorable piece and it signifies something to you individually, awesome. If it's try to just show off to your friends because that's how you keep up, and like,
it's the purpose behind it. Like for someone, that Rolex could be the make them feel great. Talk about the getting naked thing, but for some people it's like, the 6-pack abs give them confidence, but for others it's like, hey, if I roll up to a meeting in an Audi A8, I'm going to feel great, and I know I'm going to provide. Well, that's cool. Like I try not to get too much. I know you weren't doing that, but get too down, and like, I'm not totally saying never be materialistic or be materialistic. I just think everyone has their own thing. And I think it's great. Like if someone's providing for their family, they're meeting all their needs. They're great with they have great relationships. The most important things the relationships, the influence on their children's lives, all that stuff. And they want to roll around in an A8 and they've done it all right. And they've ethically built their successful business. Go and do it. Like, you only get one chance to enjoy your life. So I'm not shooting anybody down with that kind of stuff, but I know we got a little bit off on a tangent, but you did end up answering the question and kind of giving us a little bit more color into why you do what you do and why you're so passionate about this. And I really appreciate you being here and sharing that today. Last question for you is, first of all, kind of an A and a B question. Do you have a book out? Have you actually written a book and put this all pen to paper yet?
I'm working on that. My pipe dream in life is to just talk at somebody for a bit and then have the ghostwriter put all these thoughts together. But
people are out there. I've met probably 10 ghostwriters over the last 3 years, and they're all trying to. They all want me to write my book. So I said I'm still in like chapter 1.
I've got my blog has been, that's on the website too. Like my mom was talking about it yesterday. She's like, "Huh, you can write." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I've got, I don't know, 50 pieces there." Like, okay, like, yeah, it's been there for a while. She had no idea. But
I have to admit, Caleb, most of my questions today came from your blogs. So they're like
Really?
the fatherly question. You're like, "Hey, I just wrote about that." Well, where do you think I got it from?
Well, I appreciate that. I have no idea. Somebody told me like they sent my podcast to somebody else like a week ago. And I was like, so I have a fan aside from my mom. All right. Like, I guess I'm going in the right direction.
That's where that second download came from. Oh, that's cool. I knew it was out of state.
Bro, I don't check any of my numbers.
That's fine, dude. You know what? You're doing it for the right reason. The numbers there, whether they're there or not, that's the same way I kind of operate. It's like if 1 million people watch this interview right now, or 10 people do, I care more about like that 10 people got really good value than 1 million people just clicked on it. Like, I'm not just going to, you run an ad so the numbers look good, but like, I really care about the people who are being influenced and changed and inspired by it. So with that said, and I was asking about the book because now we're going to kind of hypothetically talk about it. So I want you to think about this real quick. So you're the author and protagonist in your own life story, and you get to write the ending. God willing, you live and continue to live a long, prosperous life. You're looking back on it, you're reflecting on it, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
I think it comes back to the same thing. I helped move the world a little closer to inner peace.
Yeah.
And if I can see that reflected in the people that I get to share my final breath with, I'll feel like I did a good job, and I'll be okay with that.
Yeah. We certainly need more inner peace. Everybody does. I do. Even people who are really good and meditate daily and are in there, they're not going to say, "I want less of this." They're going to say, "I love this and want more of it." And I feel like, we're in a world right now where there is a lot of turmoil. There's the left versus the right. And there's, not only political parties, but there's mindset. Like you either believe this or you don't. There's religion. And it's like, if we can just really get centered with ourselves and know that we love each other, be kind. One of my other branded shirts is the "Be Great, Be Grateful." I have another one that says "Be Kind." It's really that simple. Like you see someone, whether it's at the grocery store or at an event or whatever, or networking event, and, instead of coming at them like our brains, I feel like, at least I was like when I was young, is always trying to like evaluate what's wrong with the situation. I don't know why. I'd come into it and it's like, no, what can we make right with this situation? If you meet someone for the first time, how can that person potentially become a great friend? And if that's not in the cards, how can you leave them with something that's going to make them smile, or maybe now the rest of their night is better because you just talked to them for a minute, right? And don't expect something in return, right? So like, don't be kind to someone so you can get a gift. Like you were talking about, you love to give. You're a giver. You like to give a gift to someone because you know the way it's feeling and lighting up their heart. You don't want anything in return for that. I mean, it's not like you're going to give someone a gift and say, "Do business with me. And now that I gifted you, okay, I'm waiting for you to sign on the line." Like your business would not succeed if that was how you did it. And
No.
I'll end with this: is people are real. Like people today can, that sniff test I was talking about, way better than ever before. They can research you. They can check your social. Everybody's connected on LinkedIn. They can see your videos. They can connect all the dots, and they can pretty much tell, like, either you do have a good heart, you don't, they can get a good feel for you. So that's why I love bringing people on the show. There's never an infomercial. It's always the layers getting down. So I feel like we got naked today for the first time on the show. We actually talked about physically getting naked all the way down, but we did it today figuratively. And so I really appreciate you peeling back all the layers, getting real with us. Like I just said, that's what's most important. Like if we're not real, then everything we say can just be totally thrown out.
Well, I want to just give you a compliment again, man. Like all of this, the ability to speak freely like this comes from having a phenomenal host. And it's very obvious to me that you just have a really kind and beautiful heart, and you make the space what it is. Hosting space is very difficult. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And considering all the things that allows somebody to feel safe enough to share is a real beautiful art form. There's a lot of tact. There's a lot of insight into that. And just as a fan, like I really appreciate how you've gone about today. I think you're just an awesome guy in general. And, Mills is one of those people, like she knows who's a good person. And she was singing your praises on the retreat. And I was like, oh, I'm even more fired up to go talk with him again. So
honestly, that's right there is like the best compliment I could receive, because I do take this very seriously. I love doing it. And it's really all about the audience. And if I know I can help someone, and it's through more stories, and it's a lot of times getting your story out helps you too. I'm sure like you just spent an hour, but now you get some ammo to take it to your next call, right? You feel good. And it fuels me up. So that honestly, I know you didn't have to say that, and you meant it. And I feel it. I feel that. So I don't plan on stopping to do this anytime soon. So I'm like 130 whatever episodes in, and who knows what the number will be, but I just really love it. I'm going to keep doing it until I feel like it's not serving others or myself. I don't see that being anytime soon. So thank you so much for being here, brother. Hey, you know what to do. Be great. Be grateful. I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mikedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mikedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCiccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.